Hey ladies and gentlemen, today we are coming to you with another word of hopefully encouragement. A couple weeks ago I talked about motivation and what drives you, and one of the things I mentioned was I mentioned how in the past I was the kind of person who was always looking at a situation or at myself and thinking of reasons why I couldn't do something. And I never ended up doing anything because I never saw opportunity in things. I never saw potential. I never saw life. I was always looking at the potential faults, the potential failures, the potential failings of whatever situation was, whether it was a job, whether it was a new ministry opportunity, whether it was a new friendship, whatever. All I would see was the potential for death in that situation, and that is not a helpful perspective. You're not going to be motivated to do anything. You're just going to see the giants in your way and you're going to go, oh man, this sucks, I can't do it. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about how I've addressed that in my life and how I'm currently addressing it and learning to live a life of yes, I can go for it, I can do anything I put my mind to. Yes, there are things that get in your way, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, count the cost, obviously. Don't just rush into things, but the perspective I was living from was completely negative. It wasn't bringing life, and I wasn't acting. I was defeated before I even started. And so I want to give you guys a perspective today. And so I'm going to get into the Bible a little bit with you today. And it's from the life of Jesus when he's calling the disciples. He calls the 12, he calls the guys he wants to be around him. And he basically runs into one guy named Nathaniel who's a little bit of a stinker. And so I'll read it to you if you're not familiar. So here goes. John chapter 1 verse 43. The next day Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." So Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him and said of him, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" Jesus answered, "Before Philip called you, you were under the fig tree. I saw you." Nathanael answered him, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered him, "Because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God descending and descending on the Son of Man." So, here's the picture. We have Nathanael, who's obviously a little bit sarcastic, a little bit bitter. He may even be a little bit racist, okay? Can anything good come from Nazareth? If I said, can anything good come from Zimbabwe? Can anything good come from Australia? You'd think, he's got a chip on his shoulder against those countries, right? So, or, can anything good come from Saskatchewan? That's still up for debate. But regardless, he's a little bit racist, He has a problem with Nazarenes, Nazarites. And so he comes to Jesus. But when he shows up, Jesus says to him, "Look, an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Jesus sees right past all the garbage, right past all the dirt. He sees Nathanael, and rather than rebuking him for his obviously sarcastic personality and kind of bitter ways, he calls out the gold that he knows about him. He has a perspective on Nathanael that nobody else seems to have that we know about. And then he actually goes on to speak into his life even more and prophetically call out what he believes Nathanael's going to be walking into and the good things he's going to see and the kind of life he's going to live. Jesus calls out all the gold, He sees the dirt in his life, obviously, but that's not what he even talks to him about. He talks to him about the amazing gold that's inside of him. And this not only applies to people, but I'm going to suggest that it applies to situations too. So does your situation look bitter and nasty? If you fail to see the potential good of the situation, you may be missing out on God's perspective of it. And I'm not saying that there aren't obvious fails and flaws and challenges in your life. However, if those are the only thing you focus on, how can you expect to walk into a situation and conquer it and do your best and try hard? It's going to be impossible. So if you've ever seen the movie The Passion of the Christ, there's this one scene where Jesus is carrying the cross. He's whipped, he's beaten, he's been caught by the Pharisees. The Romans are taking to crucify him. And his mother runs up to him. And he's got this huge cross. He's bloody. He's on the ground. His mom's like, "My baby, my boy." She runs over to him. And Jesus doesn't look at her and go, give me a hug, I'm so lonely. Or, how come nobody likes me? Or, this really hurts. He looks at his mom and he says, see, mother, I make all things new. And that's not what happened biblically, okay? I'll point that out. Old Mel took some creative liberties to paint it in that picture. However, that's actually from Revelation 21 verse 5, okay? Jesus says, he says, I make all things new. That's where that comes from. So Jesus did say that. But I would argue that Jesus had that perspective, obviously, his entire ministry. If you were completely innocent and everybody put the screws to you and killed you, if you're not living from a different perspective, how do you walk through that? You don't. You cop an attitude and you pull back and you say, well, what about me? How come? You just look at the dirt of the situation. But Jesus was actually looking forward. He was looking forward to the gold in the situation. From his perspective, yes, he was beaten. Yes, he was carrying a cross. Yes, he was rejected. But from Jesus' perspective, he was making all things new. And that is absolutely amazing. So this brings me to another sort of analogy I think is helpful. But we have seeds, right? Farming analogies, everybody understands, always have, always will. Seeds are tiny, they kind of look like dirt. They're kind of dead, really. They look like there's no life there. There's nothing to them. They're small, they're just not impressive at all. Trees, on the other hand, trees are huge, they're impressive. They sprout seeds, the spinning ones and the fluttering ones. We just had this happening on our yard lately. All the seeds from the trees came down, and it just looks awesome when the wind blows and all the seeds flutter. But trees are impressive. They've got leaves, they're tall, you can climb them, they can carry weight, they produce fruit, you can eat from certain trees, and they produce fruit every single year. It's just wild, it's an impressive thing. But every single one of those trees came from a very insignificant looking seed. And so, unless you know the potential of the seed, you're going to miss out on the fruit of the tree. Do you see what I'm saying here? If you don't know the potential of a situation, you can miss out on some amazing opportunities and benefits and, for lack of a better analogy, fruit that you could harvest from that thing, right? You may have to do some weeding, you may have to do some pruning, you may have to do some watering, but that seed will eventually produce a harvest for you. So in situations I was coming up against, I was not looking at the potential of the situation. I was looking at how hard or how small it was, or how unimpressive it was, and the work that was going to be required, and just how tough it was going to be. But Jesus, he focuses on the gold that's coming out of it. Primarily, I want you to know the potential that God sees in you. This has happened to me. My life's been hard. I've had these things happen. If this hadn't happened, I wouldn't be like this. Okay, maybe. But God can take anything and make it new, okay? Your life is a seed, and God sees the potential of that seed, and he wants to call out and water and prune and grow you up into the potential that he sees in you. Secondly, God sees potential in every situation you encounter. And thirdly, God sees potential in every person you encounter. Do you have people in your life who make you mad, who never seem to get it, who are continually failing, who are always getting stuck in different situations? It's easy to get frustrated. It's easy to get upset. It's easy to feel victimized by them. So for a real life example, there's this guy I follow on Instagram. His name's Cameron Hanes. He's an ex-crack addict, ex-druggie, was for a while. He got cleaned up, and now he runs a hunting outfit. He runs ultra marathons. That's like over 100 miles. It's insane. This guy runs a marathon a day. That's 26 miles. A marathon a day to train for the ultra marathon. It's absolutely crazy, right? And so what he does is he posts videos of him running like every day, because that's all he does, and hunting and living a life of freedom and pursuing and becoming the best person he can be, right? His life as a crack addict was potentially a garbage dump. He was going to the gutter, he was shooting up every day, he was trashing his life. But the gold inside him needed to be brought out, and it was. And now he's inspiring. He's actually using his story. What was meant to destroy him actually became what's fueling him now. It actually became what is drawing other people out of their own addictions and out of their own, whether it's laziness, whether it's actually a drug addiction, whether it's whatever. The life of Cameron Hanes is causing other people to be inspired to change. And that's God right there, man. That's how God gets justice in those sort of situations. So how you move forwards in those situations will depend entirely on what it is you're seeing, on the perspective you have, whether you're seeing the gold or you're seeing the dirt. And so I would just encourage you guys, get God's perspective on your life and on circumstances and on people, and you'll always be able to move forward in hope. And hope comes from perspective. And when you start seeing things the way God sees things, there's hope in everything. I love you. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening.